Hi, I'm Charles. I direct Kaleidoscope Rock Academy and Kaleidoscope School of Music here in the Seattle area, and this is a series of videos I'm doing about myths or musical myths. As a music teacher here since the early 90s on Front Street, I have heard a lot of commentary from students, parents, people who come and attend our shows, our rock band shows, and of course from other musicians. And I think there's a lot of common misperceptions, I guess, that I would call myths. So this particular myth we're going to discuss today is really, this video is a little bit different. It's more aimed at perhaps fellow teachers, people who make their living either exclusively or on the side teaching music as well as playing. And this one is best summed up as being teachers are not as good players as performers are. Or another way to phrase the same thing is a teacher is a substandard musician. In each one of these videos, I've tried to address like the problems or the consequences of the myth. But for this one, I'm going to start with where this first came from. So my story is I started playing guitar in 1979, and in 1990 I went to Guitar Institute of Technology, or part of Musicians Institute in Hollywood, and I went from being like the best guitar player clearly at the small liberal arts college I went to in Spokane, Washington, to being like one of about 600 guitar players at the school in Hollywood. And what I learned from that experience immediately was there's always someone better than you and there's always somebody worse, so get off the comparison game. But I was sitting in the performance hall of GIT one day talking to a student from France. GIT also was a surprise to me because about 50% of the students were international students, which is not like my small liberal arts college that I went to prior here in the Northwest. And it was like, wow, there's people from everywhere here. So this particular French student was asking me what I was going to do after graduation. I said, well, I think I'll probably be, teaching half the time and playing gigs half the time or something like that. And I recall him saying, oh, teachers aren't good guitar players. They're like a different class of guitar player. If you're a teacher, you're not really going to be honing your craft. You're going to be like a substandard player. Good advice in life is always be careful what you say to people, because it's been 30 years, and I still remember that particular conversation with that particular student out of many people I talked to about many things. And I remember bristling a little bit at that. Now I have experience, having taught since 1991, late 1991. Now I have experience to rebut that philosophy. I suppose every myth has a kernel of truth, and the truth behind his is that, if you put energy out towards your students, that could be technically considered energy that you're taking away from your own practice time, or your own performance life, or your own songwriting. And I've, having managed like 70 or 80 teachers here at my school, I think there is that tension there. And I think also it does depend on how you teach, because if you teach in the very go by the book way, telling kids to buy a method book and working them through page by page in a certain method book series, it's, I think from my perspective as a contemporary musician, it's kind of soul killing. But my attitude since day one, just because of my philosophy of life, my philosophy of music, was to teach people what they wanted to know. That can get chaotic and disorganized, but it's also had the advantage over the decades that I've done this of really transforming me as a musician. So I'll give some examples of that. Things that I was not familiar with or not good at when I started teaching. Finger picking with fingers as opposed to using a pick. Folk style stuff related to that. Open tunings for folk songs, James Taylor type stuff, Jim Croce type stuff. In the 90s, I had adult students come in who wanted to learn how to play the classic Simon Garfunkel songs, and my approach to them was, let's not dumb them down, let's figure out how they actually were played. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, new respect for a genre of music that before, as a rock player, I was like, it's folksy stuff. Also in the late 90s, pop punk kind of stuff, No Effects morphing into Blink-182 became really popular with my students. I just approached it like, well, if there's 16 notes, you play them down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, like you phrase alternate picking solos. No, I was informed by my pop punk enthusiastic students, you play as much as possible called downstrokes. So I learned a whole new kind of ethic of fast hard rock playing from studying that music with students and being open-minded to it. I would also say, this is not a stylistic comment, but in general, having to figure out stuff by ear for students has made my ear immensely better than if I was just learning what I wanted to learn. I've had to slog through figuring out alternate tunings, complex layering in like emo core kind of stuff. I've had to slog through, figuring out Soundgarden weirdness. I've had to figure out note for note solos far more than I ever would have learned from my own enjoyment or my own edification. So, you know, obviously having a good ear benefits you in a million ways as a musician. And while my ear was, you know, fairly well developed by the time I got out of GIT, teaching has put me on the front lines of developing my ear and my ability to figure a wide diversity of songs out quickly for 30 years now. So I've been on this like intense front line of battle with that. And I think there's nothing more motivating than having a student you care about sitting across from you, paying you about $1 a minute, and you going, okay, I'm supposedly the expert. I need to present this material to the student. There's no tab for it online because it just came out or whatever. What the heck am I going to do? Well, it's really motivating to get your ear in gear. There's a phrase. And push through to figure something out under time pressure, no less. And then also be able to write it down in a way that communicates well to the student. And it's like mind blown, right? The other thing that I've gotten from students that's immensely enriched my life is my taste in music. So if you look at what the CDs are in my car, yes, I still listen to CDs in my car because I think they sound better. Almost everything in my pile of CDs in my car was a recommendation from a student. That includes Evanescence, Epica, Delaying, Arion, Imogen Heap, Lily Allen, very diverse. You know, like the whole symphonic metal thing that I discovered in early thousands came from students. Evanescence, one of my favorite bands, came from a student. Nightwish, one of my favorite all-time bands, came from a student who said, if you like Evanescence, you should check out Nightwish, or like Evanescence on steroids. You know, there's a few things that I like that are my own discoveries, but I really don't think I would at all be the type of musician as a listener that I am now if I hadn't been teaching. And of course, that also enriches your life in all sorts of ways. When you go to write music, if you listen to a much wider diversity of music, what you bring to the table as a composing musician is going to be different. I really can't even imagine what I'd be listening to if it was up to me to guide my own musical direction since 1991. I suspect that my students have kept me more into heavy music, more into, you know, intense guitar music. Probably I would have gone softer or jazzier if it had been just up to me. But I just, you know, it's made me a better studio musician because having to tear apart all those layers on like Blink-182 and emo type songs where they're just layering up guitars 6 deep, 10 deep, that's really helped me understand how to track layers of guitar when I'm working on my own projects. I guess also, you know, how, like I said earlier, how you teach really does influence who you become. So by being willing to go where my students want to go, I've learned a lot more. By running a rock band program, and well, first I ran recitals for students where I encouraged people to write their own music, and recitals were a big deal. And then in the early thousands, I started teaching a rock band program, and it started out as just kind of like a GIT type groove live playing workshop, but it evolved into pretty much like a cover band program where we play stuff from all eras. And again, by being open to learning 21 Pilot songs, My Chemical Romance songs, things I'd never heard before, and then charting them out for the kids in rock band, I've also expanded my horizons a lot because of bringing that into my teaching program. Also, I guess I'll say this too, I play drums and bass now probably because I'm a teacher, because when drummers missed rehearsals, it was like, well, I gotta help out the band here, so I'll sit back at the drum set and I'll be the drummer. So having a room full of instruments that I bought for rock band and then having to play them under pressure to sub for people has made me a multi-instrumentalist far more than I would have been. So I guess looking back on that original comment from the student from France, whose name I don't even remember, I'd have to say categorically he was wrong. Would I be a somewhat different performing musician? Possibly. I might, if you're trying to be like the greatest at a particular style or really develop a unique style, I haven't had as much time for that because I've been a teacher. But if your goal is to be a great all-around musician with open ears, great transcribing ability, lots of diverse talents, aware of everything in music, able to replicate everything in music, I definitely think that being a teacher on the front lines of the teaching battle, over 30 years has made a huge difference and made me a much better musician and a much better person. So I guess, I like this phrase from there's an artist that I played for in the Seattle area, Dave Irish, who wrote a song that quoted this book. It was Long Faithfulness in the Same Direction. We played that song a lot at gigs, and he talked in front of audiences about that phrase that inspired the song. And I think of teaching and musicianship in that way. Whatever you invest yourself in day after day, without fail, is what you become. So I've invested myself in the life of my students, teaching them what they want to know, going where they want to go, having an open mind, and not holding back from investing my own time and energy into figuring out the music they're interested in. And as a result, after doing that every day, having taught over 60,000 guitar lessons now, or bass lessons, it transforms who you are. So invest in what you want to become day by day, one little piece at a time, and it will transform who you are. So that's kind of my story about that particular myth. Definitely don't think there's an element of truth in it, like most myths, but it's definitely not just true. So check out some of my other music myth videos, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.